did it, okay? We did the hot button episode. We did the up to the moment current content episode. We did the listener engagement episode. You know, we've been playing with the format. We've been enjoying ourselves. And this week, you know, we're slipping back into our comfortable attire. We're getting back to our roots, if you will. I'm wearing a rather fetching and extremely comfortable flannel shirt, partly because the weather has become so inclement now that we are, you know, past the equinox and well into the longer nights and colder climes of the winter and autumn months. But also, you know, because I'm still here in Canada, we're now into month 4 of the tour. You've noticed I've brought that up less and less. Because, you know, now it's just, this is what we do. The podcast stays on tour because it goes on tour. And we'll see what happens, I suppose, when we get to our next destination tour-wise. But for now, like I said, I'm bringing it back to those old days. I'm bringing it back to those roots where we're going to turn more inwards, and certainly inspired by our favorite nugget of listener feedback that we've received, namely that from Mary, namely that we should be grumpier and potentially find philosophical insights in the core of annoyance. And so with that in mind, yeah, you know, we're going to strip it back from those grandiose subjects of Queen, specifically Queen and country in a more abstract sense, and, you know, crowd pleasing in general. We're going to bring it down to some real petty shit. All right? I hope you're ready. What do you do when you're right all the time? Okay, that's the topic of today's episode of Unclear. What do you do if you're just right all the time? What if you're not arrogant? You're correct. You know, let me provide some context here and draw some anecdotal evidence. You'll see what I'm saying, and maybe you'll even resonate. You know, people disagree on things. People disagree on things all the time. And that's perfectly allowed. In fact, that should be encouraged. Disagreement, you know, leads to conversation, leads to discovery of new viewpoints, leads to examining other perspectives on the things that you already feel firm about, right? Disagreement's positive. And you can disagree with just about anyone. You know, you can disagree with strangers, and you can disagree with the people that you know the best and are closest to. But here's the issue, you know, if you were anything like me and raised good, then you leave a disagreement and you think, what can I take away from this? What is to be learned from my viewpoint being challenged? What is to be learned from what happened here in this disagreement? You know, was it minor and we could just expand our perspectives and worldviews? Was it major and we have to examine how we feel about each other? And maybe I have to examine how I feel about myself. You know, a disagreement exposes feelings like that. And if you are motivated, have the willpower to do so, and have the introspection, but also the worldliness to take on the challenge, then every disagreement is an opportunity for learning. And it's with that in mind, that kind of social contract of like, well, if we disagree, at least, you know, there's something good that can be made of it, but we both have to do that work. There's a necessary element to that which is, like I say, a social contract. There's a trust level. You're like, well, I'm going to do this, you're going to do this, all good. We can count on each other in that sense. But also, there's a possibility there for coming out of something that feels negative at the moment more positive. Yourself, together, all of that. Excuse my squeaky chair. And so with that in mind, when you go into one of those altercations, I imagine you're not intending it. And maybe you're talking with a friend. Maybe you're talking with a loveur. Maybe you're talking with someone that you work with, right? The main context here being like, you don't want to fuck it up. You want to continue the relationship afterwards. So if you have a disagreement with this person, you want to reconcile. You want to put it right. You want to repair if you can. And again, I'm really trying to paint broad strokes here. This could be anything from like, oh, well, we disagree that Breaking Bad is the greatest show of all time, to you have fundamentally insulted me, to, as I say, perhaps a work disagreement where, something's really gone bad in a project sense, and there's blame to be apportioned. People disagree. But ultimately, in all of these situations, there's going to be another moment when you get back together. You have to talk about what occurred to some extent, and then you have to move forward together, right? And so, again, if you were not raised in a barn, then what you'll hopefully try to do is, even if you were right, even if like in that argument you're like, I was pretty confident that like my viewpoint was the correct one, you will still, for the sake of humanity, for the sake of the furthering of our society and species, you'll look in the mirror and you'll say, well, what if I was wrong? What if even though I wasn't wrong, what if my viewpoint was right, but I expressed myself poorly? What if I was aggressive in the way that I argued? What if I was disrespectful in the way that I listened? Is there still an opportunity, even though my point was bang on the money, to be like, I was a bad interlocutor in that moment, potentially a bad friend, potentially a bad colleague? And how can you bring that into the next time you see that person and be like, I'm sorry. And I'm talking today, and I want to focus on a particularly sticky moment where you do that, right? You've gone home, you've looked for the lessons, you've found the lessons. You're going to see this person again. It's coming up, right? This is the moment, it's happening right now. You're seeing this person again since the last time you argued. Okay? You got to clear that air. You got to say your piece, maybe they'll say theirs. And so you're coming locked and loaded. Like I say, you think you can probably defend your point again. If it comes to it, if you're pushed, you can get back on that soapbox, right? But now you've also maybe found some better ways to argue your point, better ways to say it, better ways to frame it. You've heard some of their arguments, so you know how to maybe rebut them, or you know how to better frame your stuff to like sidle past any of the arguments that they've already expressed, right? And as I say, you've done the good work. You've gone home and you'd said, there is fault on both sides. And so in this moment, you want to express it. So let me paint the picture. That's where you're at, right? That's the picture painting, I should say. And then this person that you're talking to, that you are apologizing to, explaining yourself to, and hoping for something reciprocal from, they say, yeah, you were wrong. And that's it. There's no follow-up, right? There's no apology from their side. There's no explaining themselves better. There's no explaining themselves in a way that's like, oh, well, what I meant, what I actually, they're not going out of their way, or maybe they're even not beginning to get in the way of being like, oh yeah, I was at fault here too. And this is the moment I'm focused on, right? I've been thinking about this a lot because I've been experiencing it. Because you have chosen the high road. You've chosen, I don't want to come into this aggressive. I want to repair. And I even want to apologize, even when I think I'm right. And now you're meeting this person that you've done all that work for, that you want to repair things with, that you want to look in the eye and say, things got better, and we did that together. And they are being a dick. What do you do now? Because you chose the high road, so you can't come down off that high road. You can't say, oh, well, you know what, actually, back then, when I said I was sorry, what I meant was, you're wrong, and I'm not sorry. You can't do that. You can't switch through now, because then not only have you abandoned the high road, but you look like a moron because you're switching up your position, right? You've just spent all that time being like, well, okay, so you're an idiot. So you can't do that. You can't abandon the high road in any other way because you've chosen it, right? And that's what it is. And if you step off the high road for a moment, then it's like you never got on it at all. If you choose the path of fairness, of open-mindedness, of being reasonable, then you can't at any moment switcheroo and be unreasonable. And here you are faced with the truest test of that, someone who is being unreasonable with you. I work as a freelancer, and I mean, whatever, I shouldn't even limit that. I think anybody who works and wants to progress, or maybe just like be valued for their work and for their contribution, which, hopefully, fingers crossed, leads to some kind of progression. That's a promotion, financially, or, responsibility. We're just making that up as we go along. That's great. Like I say, you're trying to impress to some degree somebody who can make the decision making. And as a freelancer, I find that a lot of that is about impressing people, or making just the right impression, I suppose I should say, so that I get the next job, basically. So, like I say, everybody who works has some experience of that. You're always thinking about the next job, or the next promotion, or the next task. If you are, that ambition is the way you're minded. But with freelancing and the nature of gig work in general, then it's very much like not just, how do I get the better office? It's like, how do I get paid next month? I have to make sure the job that is this month is very impressive, and I make a great impression, and they either hire me again or they tell their mates, right? And when I say mates, I of course mean colleagues and LinkedIn connections, because those are the people you're trying to get. So here you are making an impression. Here I am making an impression. And I feel like I say, a lot of it is based on professionalism. As you all know, my day-to-day work is web development. So I like to make an impression in terms of that professionalism by simply being personable. Because I don't know if you've ever worked with anyone in the sphere of IT, but that's not always how they are. There can be a lot of antisocial behavior, let's put it that way, and things that are said and done that are not necessarily client facing. And that doesn't lead to a lot of re-employment, I would suggest, in the kind of work that I want to do. And so I make sure I'm very professional, and I make sure I'm very client facing and people pleasing and yes sir, no sir about everything I do. So there's an element of sales and account person to getting that work and moving from job to job, as well as obviously delivering in a work capacity. And so I think where I think about this is that imbalance of the social contract in the arguments we were talking about, where it's like, oh, I believe that I have faith that you're coming to this argument in good faith. And then when you go home and think about what we said to one another, that you two will re-examine your thoughts, re-examine your actions. And when we see each other again, we'll both apologize unnecessarily for the things that we didn't really do, but may have been perceived to do, so that we might also receive an apology for the things that were done to us, the things that caused us harm. There's that social contract. There's a vague understanding that we both might do an aspect or some aspects of that, right? And so when I'm working a contract for a company and I'm trying to hit a level of client-facing and professionalism and competency at my job, I'm trying to operate on a high level so that I can be paid on a high level, appreciated on a high level, and re-employed at a quick pace, And I feel that there is a social contract, therefore, that so should the people I'm working for. Be professional. Be well put together. Be well presented, competent, on time, putting in effort to complete the job that we're all working on together. And it just feels like there's a delta, or when there is a delta, and I'm working my little socks off and crossing all the T's and presenting myself well, and there is a difference between myself and the client that I'm working for, and some of their work and some of their working practices and some of their responses to sentences seems to be lacking those attributes. It's pretty disappointing. It's pretty demoralizing. It's pretty, it like takes the motivation out of the professionalism and out of like, well, I want to make sure I, make the right impression, meet the right people, shake the right hands, because everybody's whose hands you're shaking, you're kind of like, well, you're kind of a dick as well. And you're kind of not nailing this. And so you enter into a strange contradiction where you want to be noted as someone who is a good employee by someone that you don't like working with and you don't necessarily want to work for. But the truth of the matter is they have the cash and they have the projects, and on most days the work isn't bad. So you got to do this you've got to do a lot of sucking up, which doesn't make you feel great. It doesn't imbue a person with confidence to be like I say, 3 bags full, sir, to someone who doesn't know where those 3 bags are, so that, that I can fill them. And I think I almost have too many anecdotes of this. And again, if you've listened to the last one, you'll know I'm trying to get employed. So I'm really trying to minimize how many companies I put on blast, by name, and previous employers. So if any prospective employer is listening right now, just know that all of this is an extremely contrived comedic bit, and I don't mean any offense to anybody, and this is actually just a character that I'm doing. But if you're not a prospective employer, then you'll know that that's bollocks. And I'm, again, just trying to find the right anecdote. And so the one that sprung into my mind today was on a quite recent job. In fact, actually, this was. It just was a real perfect encapsulation of, like I say, the delta of professionalism, kind of expected, delivered, and then demonstrated by the two sides of the table, as it were, in this client and employed relationship that we have. So as with most jobs, there's myself, there's the person who hired me, and then the person who hired them. So that third person is the client. They are running the job. They're in charge of stuff. And it's them we're trying to please. The person in between, usually an agency that I'm employed by, they are actually in charge of the job. They're doing the project management, the nitty gritty, the resources, the hiring of resources, and so on. And then there's me. I make the thing all good. And sometimes, often actually, if I'm on these freelance jobs and they are of a shorter nature, I'll get to meet the client directly. And so I get to, in that sense, go past the middleman and have that, direct contact. And unsurprisingly, a lot of times that happens in meetings. And unsurprisingly, in 2022, a lot of that happens in Zoom meetings. So generally speaking, I can't believe that I'm explaining this, but you get an email, it's got a link in it, you open the link, you attend the meeting, okay? That didn't necessarily need explaining, but maybe you'll think it will by the end of this story to some people. And maybe you can already see where this is going. So, I'm enjoying the project. It's going well so far. The agency and I are getting on. We're hitting all our goals. The client and I are getting on. We're hitting all our goals. They're loving what I'm doing. Everybody's loving everyone. Amazing. Like, it's just, one of those real nice, smooth jobs. And then you get a dreaded email, which is basically the client has doubts, right? They're not ready. They're not in the right headspace. There's something that their cousin said when they logged on to the test website at a bar mitzvah that made them think about the whole project down to its core. And you're just like, all right, great. And so, you're worried when you get these emails, our client's concerned about what we're going to do here, that the whole project might fall down around your ears. So you pray that it doesn't, and you try to jump on the meeting. And again, you try to be professional. The way to really sail the choppy waters of client doesn't know what the fuck's going to happen next is to get into the meeting and be charming, be effusive, be engaged, be forward-thinking, and be excited, but also maintain the professionalism of a person who loves what you're doing and really wants to do it, but also is going to do it to a very exacting technical standard that has no emotional value whatsoever. So those are all the things you're trying to hit. And I know this meeting is coming up because I keep seeing emails about it. And I know that it's going to be Friday because that's what's mentioned in the emails. But there's nothing in my calendar, and there's nobody sent me anything to put specifically in the calendar, which means that I know that there is going to be a meeting, and I know that the day on which it's going to be, but by the magic of Zoom, I cannot join that meeting because I don't have the link, I don't have the time, so it's still conceptual in that sense. And the day's approaching, and of course, as I say, this is a high-stakes meeting. Maybe everything will get crashed. So not only do I want it to go well, but I want to be like in this zone before it, right? So I want to prep for it, sit down. And currently interrupting my ability to get in the zone and enjoy it and therefore achieve any of these goals in any way in this meeting is the fact that I don't know when it is. So I'm kind of freaking out and like, man, I hope that this time gets set. I hope we're all good. Now, here's the sport. You can't ask the client You can't ask the client anything untoward. You can't ask the client anything but, would you like 50% more of the thing that you really like? Because for no extra dollars, I can give it to you. That's the only kind of question you ask to the client. Again, it's a game of charm and poise and, softly, right? So you can't be like, hey, what's up? When's the meeting? Because I don't have an invite. You keep talking about this meeting and I don't know what it is. So sort me out, That's not how we're going to play this. So obviously, you see where this is going. I have to contact the agency. They're in charge, right? They've organized the meeting. One would assume they're on the emails as well. They're just as clued in as I am. So they must know when the meeting is, and it is their job. And I, to a certain extent, can ask them anything. Now, I don't want to piss them off. I don't want to ruffle any feathers because I want things to go well. And I want them to employ me again. So I'm choosing the high road. I'm choosing chillness, openness, fairness. And I say, hey guys, so crazy. So you're not gonna believe this. But you guys must have organized a meeting and I didn't actually get an invite. Isn't that so crazy? Oh my God. I know the internet is crazy, right? So if you could just anytime you like, I know you got a busy day, so just take it easy. But if you find a moment, do you mind just dropping me the invite? Oh, I know it's a lot. I know it's a lot to ask. Sorry, guys. I get a response back. You're on the invite. Not even, you heard the butter with which I laden my message. Oh, you're on the invite. Oh, okay. Oh, and so, I whip out the quill again, unroll the parchment. Dearest agent, with whom I have enjoyed working since day one and would treasure the opportunity to do so with again. I hate to be this person. And in fact, I can only assume that it's been a technical error so severe that I myself have to contact the head of the internet to get this fixed. But I actually, despite what you think about me being added to the invite, I'm not on there. And again, I am considering burning down the internet to its very foundations because there's no way this could have happened because I know that you did your job. And so it's got to be these bits and bleeps that are fucking us up. Am I right? Another response. Yeah, you should look into that. You should look into what's happening in your inbox because you've definitely got the invite. And so at this point, right, again, I've chosen the high road. I've chosen open. I've chosen love. I've chosen peace. But these guys are trying my patience. And now I'm thinking, do I like this job? Do I like this agency? Do I like working with these people? Do I enjoy what I'm doing here? Or are these people morons? Because I don't have the invite link. And I've been as kind as I possibly can. And it's getting me nowhere. And in fact, I'm kind of getting a bit of sass. I'm kind of being told that I'm an idiot. When in fact, I know, we all know here, they're the idiots. So you see the comparison I'm making here, right? And so finally, I get wind of several things at the same time. It is now the day of the scheduled meeting. And I get informed by email, the meeting is in 15 minutes. I hope you're still ready. And at that point, I'm not ready to be on the high road anymore. And I say, I still don't have the link. There's no flair. There's no niceties. We're still fair, but now we're stern. I still don't have the link. Would you mind sending it again? I ask, fairly, through gritted teeth. And on this side of the keyboard, through, a lot of expletives. They don't make it into the final copy of the email. And then a strange thing happens. 3 minutes before the meeting begins, a little notification. A little bubble, a little bell goes off. And here's the meeting invite. It appears immediately in my calendar. Here's the meeting invite. There's the Zoom link. Everything I've hoped for is there. The client's included in the invite list. The agents are included in the invite list. I'm included in the invite list finally. And now who's this? There's another person on the invite list. Now, who could this be? Could this be someone on the client side who wants to contribute to this stressful conversation we might be having? Is it another person for the agency, perhaps, who has something else to contribute? Or have they heard? Oh no. Have they heard how rude I was in my final email asking for this very link? And is this the boss's boss's boss? And he's finally joined these meetings just to publicly humiliate me, take me apart, and get me out of the company for life? Could that be where this is going? Wait. This person's name is Tom as well. This person their first name is Tom, and their second name starts with the letter G. Now, if you're a typography fan, you'll of course recognize that the arc of a C and a G in capital form can be quite similar. So one could say that visually at least, this Tom G looks quite similar to Tom C. If one were typing that into an invite list for a meeting, and if one had the capacity of a child. And so I finally jump on this meeting, and there's just riotous laughter. Riotous. They're having the time of their life. Clients in tears. Agents of the agency, not sure why I keep saying agents, but people from the agency, they're in tears as well. And there's no sign of any additional Tom G. And before I can even unmute my microphone, they say, "Oh, and finally the real Tom can join us." And they're all crying with laughter. This is the funniest fucking thing that's ever happened in the history of either of these companies. They're just weeping. It was a mistake, everyone. It was a crazy mistake. The agency employees had sent an invite to a completely random other individual. And when I asked them to check the invite more than 3 times, they did not do that. They did not update it. They did not even accept that my viewpoint that they should check the invite was a valid one. And I could do nothing about it because when I got on the call with them, they were all screaming, laughing about it, and I can do nothing because I want to impress them all, and I want to get work from them again, and I want to be paid for the work that I am currently doing. And I just have to bite my tongue as they laugh through what is the funniest thing that's ever happened in their lives, which to me was an incredibly stressful, frustrating, and demoralizing whole fucking debacle, which showed me fundamentally the differences in professionalism between me trying to know this meeting time days in advance so I can iron my shirts at just the right moment so that I can pull them off the press and impress over Zoom, and their level of professionalism, which is to just ham-fistedly smash their sausages against the keyboard invite some total stranger, refuse to accept that that's what they might have done, and then laugh about it. And so, dear listener, I welcome you back into the ranting corner of the Unclear podcast. Because what the goddamn hell do you do in those situations? How do you sleep at night? Because I rest my head down and all I can remember is the searing white hot rage that I felt as I sat on this Zoom call and, sort of like internally pinned the corners of my mouth up in a grimaced style, just so I could join in on the joke with the people on the other side of this goddamn meeting, just so I could not ruffle any feathers, just so I could maintain the relationship that I hated so much in that moment. And I have no idea how to square those two complete contradictions. I am not enjoying, and I don't know how to stop seeing the parallel between those weird professional sort of, powerless moments and impotent moments, and those very same ones that happen in friendships and real personal relationships. I have no idea how to square those. I have no idea how to deal with the fact that the highest road can be the roughest road. Because then why not just muck it out on the low road, bro? I know that the low road leads to less friends, leads to less work, leads to less happiness. But when those people from the agency were yucking it up about this fucked up invitation, yucking it up at my expense, the low road didn't seem that bad at all. It seemed like a lot of fun. And that's what I think the problem is.